I am going to tell you a statistical truth that might ruin your day, but it could change your entire life. Look at the richest people in the world. 75% of them are entrepreneurs, 15% are investors, 7% are heirs to massive fortunes, and 3% are elite athletes or entertainers. Do you know what percentage got rich by simply collecting a standard paycheck from a boss? Zero. Absolute zero. What do the top categories have in common? Entrepreneurs own businesses, investors own assets, heirs own trusts. It is a brutal mathematical reality. If you don't own anything, it means the system owns you. Meet Kong. He is part of the 99%. He gets his paycheck, pays his bills, and spends whatever is left on pure garbage. The system is perfectly engineered to make you feel rich for exactly 1 week, only to leave you at zero by the end of the month. It is a vicious cycle. In ancient times, slaves worked for free but received housing, food, and water. Today, we get a salary, but we immediately hand it back to the landlords and supermarkets for that exact same housing, food, and water. The only real difference is the carefully crafted illusion of freedom. So how does an average primate escape the wheel and start acting like the 1%? You deploy the 25-15-50-10 rule. It is a mathematical framework designed to force your money to buy ownership. Step 1. The first 25% of your income must go directly to growth. And by growth, I do not mean buying courses on meditation or crystals. I mean purchasing hard assets that appreciate in value. An asset is a soldier. You work your day job while your assets work in the trenches for you, fighting inflation 24/7. Kong thinks he doesn't have enough money to buy assets right now. He thinks he will wait until he's older and richer. This is the greatest lie of the middle class. Delaying your investments is mathematically fatal. Let me show you why. Let's look at young Kong. At age 20, he decides to invest just $200 a month into the market. Now meet his coworker, Chad. Chad wants to live it up in his 20s. He waits until he is 30 to start investing. To catch up, Chad invests a much heavier $300 a month. Fast forward to retirement at age 60. Who contributed more of their own heavy cash? Kong put in $96,000 over his lifetime. Chad put in $108,000. Chad sacrificed more of his paycheck, but because they invested in the S&P 500, which historically averages a 10% return, the magic of compounding takes over. Chad's portfolio grew to roughly $678,000. Not bad for a late start. But Kong, because he started 10 years earlier, his portfolio exploded to over $1.2 million. Kong contributed $12,000 less than Chad, but walked away with nearly $600,000 more. That is the ruthless power of time. Delaying your investments doesn't just cost you the money you didn't save, it costs you the exponential growth you murdered by waiting. So what exactly should you buy with that 25%? Think of asset classes like a ladder of risk and reward. At the very bottom, the safest foundation are broad market index funds. You are buying a tiny slice of the 500 largest companies in America: Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. Next up the ladder is real estate. If you can't afford a rental property, you can buy REITs, which let you own fractions of commercial buildings without fixing leaky toilets at 2 a.m. In the middle of the ladder are high-income skills. Investing in your brain yields the fastest ROI. Sales, coding, video editing, nobody can ever tax or steal your skills. Near the top of the ladder are individual stocks. If you try to blindly pick the next tech giant without knowing how to read a balance sheet, you aren't investing, you're guessing. And at the very peak of the ladder, balancing precariously, are alternative and speculative assets: cryptocurrencies, prediction markets, sports betting apps. These are fueled by financial nihilism. Young primates feel so behind on wealth that they gamble their hard-earned cash on extreme risks, hoping to get rich overnight. This is a casino, not a wealth strategy. Start your foundation at the bottom. But knowing what to buy is only half the battle. You have to know where to put it. If you buy the right assets inside the wrong financial account, the government will legally harvest thousands of your dollars in taxes. This brings us to tax-advantaged accounts. First priority is your 401k. If your employer offers a match, you contribute exactly enough to get it. A company match is literal, guaranteed free money. Turning it down is financial treason. The second weapon is the Roth IRA. You fund this account with money that has already been taxed from your paycheck. But here's the magic trick. Once the money is inside the Roth IRA, it grows completely tax-free forever. When you retire and pull millions out of that account, the IRS cannot touch a single penny of your gains. Billionaires absolutely abuse this loophole. Peter Thiel legally grew his Roth IRA to over $5 billion, tax-free. But simply opening the account is not enough. Millions of people transfer cash into an IRA, let it sit in a holding fund, and never actually invest it. That's like buying a Ferrari and leaving it parked in the garage with no engine. You have to put the money to work. You do this by setting up automatic transfers from your bank to your brokerage on the exact day you get paid. If you never see the cash hit your checking account, your primate brain will not be tempted to spend it on luxury car payments or dumb subscriptions. Once it hits the brokerage, deploy it into a simple 3-fund portfolio. You do not need to be a Wall Street genius to do this. Component 1, a total U.S. stock market index fund. This buys you a tiny fraction of every major corporation in America: Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. Component 2, an international index fund. This captures the growth of massive global companies outside the U.S., diversifying your risk. Component 3, a U.S. Treasury bond ETF. You lend money to the government, they guarantee a return, acting as a stabilizer when stocks crash. If young, go aggressive, 80 to 90% stocks. Set dividends to reinvest so your money automatically buys more shares of itself. Then close the app and walk away. Wealth is not created by picking the perfect stock. It is created by boring, automated consistency. But what happens when reality strikes? Investing 25% is useless if a random disaster forces you to sell assets at a massive loss. This brings us to the second pillar of the blueprint. The next 15% of your income must go towards stability. When Kong was younger, he bought a massive V8 truck. He felt like a king until the engine blew. He had zero savings, no cushion, no plan. To keep his job, he took out another high-interest loan to fix it. A broken car broke his finances, setting his wealth building back an entire year. This is why you need a massive cash buffer. The next 50% of your income must go towards your baseline needs. This is the 50% that feeds your stomach, not your ego. Shockingly, over 60% of Americans earning $100,000 a year are still living completely paycheck to paycheck. They are entirely obsessed with looking wealthy to strangers at traffic lights instead of actually being wealthy and private. Look at Chad. Chad wears a $300 designer shirt, a flashy watch, and goes out for expensive drinks every single weekend. Now look at Kong. Kong wears the same gray hoodie every day, rocks a cheap digital watch, and keeps his life brutally minimal. To society, Chad is successful, but society cannot see Chad's bank account, which holds exactly $43 and a past due fee. Kong, on the other hand, has a maxed-out Roth IRA, a fully funded stability cushion, and zero toxic consumer debt. This is the grand illusion you must overcome. True wealth is not what you see. True wealth is hidden, compounding quietly in the background. Step 1 is ruthlessly defining your actual needs. Needs are simple: housing, basic groceries, utilities, reliable transportation, and insurance. That keeps you alive and employed. Food delivery 4 times a week, a forgotten Prime subscription, and an unused gym are not needs. By artificially forcing your needs to fit into 50% of your income, you automatically squeeze the toxic lifestyle inflation out of your budget. Step 2 is attacking the big two: housing and transportation. Always negotiate your rent at renewal. Landlords hate the cost of finding new tenants. If you want to be aggressive, house hack. Rent out a room, get a roommate, or temporarily move back in with your parents to stockpile cash. Next is the car. Financing a luxury vehicle just to sit in traffic is financial suicide. It's a depreciating asset masquerading as an achievement. Buy a reliable used car that has already survived the steepest cliff of its depreciation curve. Drive it until the wheels fall off. Step 3. Build systems, not willpower. The richest 1% rely on rigid, pre-programmed rules, not self-discipline. When you're stressed or tired from work, your willpower evaporates. That's exactly when the marketing algorithms strike. To fight this, use the 7-day rule. Whenever you want an impulse purchase, put it in your cart, close the tab, and wait exactly 1 week. 7 days later, ask yourself if you still truly care about it. 90% of the time, the dopamine craving is completely gone. You must separate the brand from the actual value. A solid pair of $60 boots worn 100 times cost you 60 cents per use.
But if you buy fragile $200 designer sneakers and only wear them twice to avoid scuffing, you paid $100 per use. Horrible economics. Now we reach the final part of the formula. The last 10% of your income must go into the Joy Fund. Listen carefully. A strict budget with no room for fun fails like a crash diet. People who restrict every penny eventually snap and binge spend. The 10% Joy Fund systematically removes the guilt from spending. It is a psychological pressure valve for your sanity. But you must spend it strategically. Category 1, vacations. Taking a break is not a luxury, it is necessary maintenance for your brain. When Kong started his wealth journey, he grinded nonstop and skipped every holiday. Eventually, the sheer stress caused his body to physically shut down. He was forced to take a ski trip to recover. That mental reset changed his life. Vacations are investments in your long-term output. Category 2, hobbies. Whether it's painting or photography, hobbies give you passion and stop you from burning out in your cubicle. Category 3, evening outings. Grinding in total isolation destroys your network. Building human connections is critical for mental health. Category 4, meaningful gifts. Generosity strengthens the relationships that actually matter when money fades. Step 2 is creating the actual system. Open a completely separate checking account and name it the Joy Fund. Set up a strict automated transfer. Earn $2,000, $200 goes directly to Joy. The golden rule is no cheating. You cannot steal from growth or stability to fund joy. If the Joy Fund is empty, you stay home and wait. Step 3. Prioritize experiences over physical objects. Hoarding depreciating metal in your driveway and filling your closet with overpriced logos does not make you rich. It makes you a target for marketers. Spend your 10% on memories that embed themselves into your brain. A trip with your wife, a theme park day with your kid. That is exactly how the 1% structure their lives. They own their assets and they own their time. They are not slaves to a monthly corporate paycheck. They use the system to build an unbreakable fortress of wealth. Let's recap the code. 25% deployed into heavy, appreciating assets. 15% stockpiled into a high-yield, liquid account to protect you from life's unexpected disasters. A strict 50% allocated to your essential survival needs, keeping your lifestyle inflation locked in a cage. And a final 10% dedicated purely to guilt-free joy, so you don't lose your mind on the journey to the top. It doesn't matter if you make $40,000 or $400,000 a year, the ratios remain exactly the same. If you follow this blueprint, the math dictates that you will eventually buy your own freedom. You will own your life. Are you disciplined enough to stick to the numbers, or will you keep handing your paycheck back to the corporations that want you broke? Tell me in the comments down below, which percentage of the rule are you currently failing at? I promise I won't judge you. We all start somewhere. But if you constantly struggle with that 50% needs category, and if you find yourself lying in bed at 11 p.m. scrolling through your phone and suddenly buying things you didn't even know existed 5 seconds ago, you are trapped in a completely different kind of psychological prison. To find out exactly how modern marketing algorithms hack your brain and how to finally stop bleeding cash on useless dopamine hits, click the video popping up on your screen right now to learn about the dopamine trap destroying your wealth. I'll see you over there. Keep your overhead low and outsmart your primate brain.